Thank you very much. So welcome everyone. Really delighted to welcome so many people here. It's really fantastic to have so much interest in our events and to learn more about what Live Longer and Better in Hertfordshire is all about, and the potential fantastic benefits that it could create across the county. So very quickly to start with, I'm just going to run through some event housekeeping. So as you will have already noticed, we're using the webinar function of Zoom today, which means all participants will remain muted throughout, but you do have the, first of all, you've got the chat function down the bottom, and I've seen lots of people using that already. One thing I will press again, I mentioned it a second ago, but when you use the chat, make sure if you want everyone in the room to see it, you select all attendees and panelists. Otherwise it'll only be those that are panelists. It'll only be me and Muir that will be able to see what you're saying, and we want everyone to be able to see, unless it is just for us, of course. Suggest selecting speaker view, which is in your top right hand corner for the best viewing experience. The event shouldn't last any longer than 60 minutes, so it will be done by midday. And if you have specific questions, rather than us lose it in the chat, use the Q&A function. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the event, and then we'll stop periodically, or if not during, definitely by the end, we'll address all the questions. And if we run out of time, we'll do those by email afterwards, but we'll try and leave as much time for questions throughout the event as possible. So the webinar is being recorded, and it will be distributed afterwards to everyone that's been signed up to the event, and would encourage you to cascade that across colleagues and your existing networks to try and spread news of the movement as far and wide as possible. So just to start off with, before I hand over to Muir, I'll do a quick rundown of Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire. I know there's some attendees, which have been fantastic to see coming for the first time today, so may not have been at our launch event a couple of months ago, and may not have seen the website yet. So in essence, Live Longer Better is a movement and not a project, and that was one thing that was kind of really important, and we learned to push early on, especially from myself. So I'm the health manager at the Heart Sports and Physical Activity Partnership, and I coordinate the Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire movement, and a lot of what we do is project based, but this is, like I say, a little bit different. So what we're trying to do here is encourage an umbrella movement for as many organisations and individuals and community members and anyone that's got an active interest in this subject area to come in underneath the umbrella as a united force to push the importance of active ageing across the county. The movement targets three main areas. So that's collaboration, as I mentioned, trying to get everyone working together and lots of people travelling the same road as a united force. Really focusing on learning and upskilling opportunities, and Muir mentioned a little bit more about that, and how knowledge really is the biggest power in all of this. So the more we can ensure that people have a healthy knowledge of this topic area, the better it's going to be for everyone across the county. And really changing of culture, so moving to one of enablement, and one that as people age across the county, it's maintaining or regaining their abilities, rather than succumbing to the inevitable I'll settle into the couch and spend my later years kind of watching Countdown. So we've got a dedicated website for the movement, so if you haven't seen it yet, please do, after the event, go and have a look around, where we've got a lot of the theory and the learning materials are hosted there. We've got a lot of the branding material that we'd encourage as many partners as possible to use across their networks while you're pushing active ageing projects and movements. And also it's a platform that we hope to be able to showcase partner offers as well. So it's not only to spread the movement, but it's also somewhere that everyone that's operating within this arena can use to highlight the fantastic work that we know is already going on around the county, to improve everything that we do together. This is the first of our bi-monthly masterclasses, and we're really honoured to have Muir here to deliver that today, and we will have one every 2 months following this, from a different specialist and covering a different topic area. And we've got quite an adventurous target of creating 1,000 advocates for the Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire movement. They will form our ambassadors, and we're working really closely with a technology provider for a suite of online classes, which will be available pretty soon. And keep an eye on your emails, and especially everyone on the mailing list, because those details will be coming soon, and we'll be looking for people to sign up as advocates and help push the movement across the county. And as mentioned, there is that mailing list. So when you signed up to the event, you had the option to sign up to the mailing list. And if you said yes to that, emails will come through from me as and when there's important news to push out. So, as I said, we're really honoured to have Muir here today. Just as means of a quick introduction, to give his full title, Professor Sir Muir Gray. He's been knighted for his services to the NHS and is widely considered one of the most creative minds in modern medicine. He's had a really impressive career working for the NHS since 1972. In that time, Muir's held a number of senior positions, including Director of Research and Development for Anglia and Oxford Regional Health Authority. He's established and directed the UK National Screening Committee. He founded the National Library for Health and was Director of the Clinical Knowledge Process and Safety for NHS National Programme for IT, serving as the Director of the National Knowledge Service. Muir is an internationally renowned authority on healthcare systems and has advised governments of several countries outside the UK, including Australia, New Zealand, Italy, Spain, and Germany. And now, as part of an ongoing mission to help people age well, Muir has launched the National Live Longer Better movement and has published numerous books advocating the importance of active aging. You can see those books on the screen at the moment. If you haven't had a chance to get your eyes into any of those, they are really good reads, so I encourage you to do so. So I think that's enough from me. Obviously, you guys aren't here to hear me talk, so we're honoured to have Muir join us today. No further delay. Gives me a lot of pleasure to hand over to Muir to be able to talk to you about this special subject.
Thank you, Will. Now so I'd like you all to imagine that you're either your mum or your dad or a grandparent, or perhaps you imagine sitting in a bridge club in Stevenage, or a bowls club in Watford, or a mosque in Watford, or a WI near Tring. So I'd like to imagine you're this. I'm going to start off by just giving you the sort of picture I would give you if you're one of those, a group of those people. So let me see, Will, if I can do the famous sharing. Now you'll need to give me power, Will. Okay. Can you see that, Will?
Yes.
Good. So, let me just see if I can. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are only two phases in life, a phase of growth and development, a turning point, and from then on, it's downhill all the way. But that's not as depressing as it seems, because it's not all due to the process of aging, the normal biological process of aging. And it is not a cause of major problems until the 90s, really, but it does affect your maximum level of ability, your maximum pulse rate, for example, and your resilience. Fitness is another word for resilience. It's your ability to cope with a challenge. The challenge may be a trip or a stumble, or a change in environmental temperature, or lockdown. So that's aging, because you see, there are three other things that affect us as we live longer. And the first of these is loss of fitness. Now, fitness has got two features. One is loss of maximum level of ability, maximum speed you can run. And the second is loss of resilience. Now, you'll notice these are exactly the same features as normal biological aging, which is why the medical profession has confused these two until very, very recently. Now, what do we mean by resilience? Well, here's an example. Either lockdown or spending a week in bed. Someone who's 20 will recover more quickly and more completely. Someone who's 80 who spends a week in bed will recover more slowly and may not recover all that is lost. So that's loss of fitness. Now I'll come back to fitness, because the fitness gap opens up from the turning point on. And the turning point for most people is about 22. And that's the age you get your first sitting job. And it's not a lifestyle issue. It's an environmental issue. We live in an environment dominated by the car, the computer, and the desk job. And that's why this meeting will finish in 60 minutes, or now 53 minutes. I'm trying to pass a law that no Zoom conference should last more than 55 minutes. We've got to get up and get moving. But for most people, the fitness gap between the best possible rate of decline and the actual rate of decline gets wider the longer we live. So people like me have been sitting for 50 years in various jobs, in a car, or in a meeting room, or in a clinic. So if we want to assess someone's fitness, I'd get you all to go and run half a mile and then come back. Some would not come back at all, and I could make a judgment. But you can see here that the fitness is also, like aging, is a loss of resilience. People take longer to recover, and they will usually recover all that's lost, but they'll be more distressed. They'll have less resilience, and their maximum level of ability is less. Now, the good news is that at any age, you can narrow the fitness gap. At any age, you can narrow the fitness gap in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. The second factor that affects us is disease. And this tidal wave is the increased number of long-term conditions people have. And I've got 3 or 4. I grew up in Glasgow before the Clean Air Act, so I've got a bit of bronchitis. I had a heart attack 7 years ago. I get polio in my right leg. Remember polio? This is not my first pandemic, I can tell you. So we live with these conditions. The issue about disease, and much of it's preventable. You do need a bit of luck to avoid the diseases we can't prevent, Parkinson's, for example, or Alzheimer's disease. But you need a bit of luck, and you have to remember that physical activity is even more important for people with long-term conditions. And this has been emphasized by the chief medical officers of the United Kingdom. Because this is what happens. You see, when disease comes on, the best possible rate of ability does decline more quickly. So when I had a heart attack, I lost a chunk of heart muscle, and therefore my maximum level of ability went down even more quickly. Now, unfortunately, for most people, the actual rate of decline goes down even more quickly than the best possible rate of decline. The fitness gap gets wider faster. And it may be you drop below what we call the line. And when you drop below the line, it means you can't get to the toilet in time. And that is it. Game over. We have to think about giving you residential care. And the reason the fitness gap gets wider longer, I'll come back to it, but the good news is that at any age, no matter how many long-term conditions you've got, we can close the fitness gap. We can keep the fitness gap above, small enough to be above the line. Now, the reason that people lose fitness is partly because of the effects of disease. So my heart attack took out a chunk of my heart muscle, but it's more about the way people think. So the son who sees his mother struggling to the shops, not realizing that struggling is what he pays money every month to go to a gym to do. It's called training. So his response is just to send in Ocado. Whereas his first response would be to see if there are ways in which you could help mother regain the strength and stamina to get to the shops. But it's negative thinking. It's ageism. So those are the 3 factors: loss of fitness, disease complicated by accelerated loss of fitness, and negative thinking. So that's what's happening to us as we go. There are social factors, negative thinking and deprivation, disease, loss of fitness, and fitness is physical, cognitive, and emotional, and aging. So, ladies and gentlemen of Stevenage or Watford, just carry on with what you've been doing. The Mediterranean diet, stop smoking if you still smoke. But these have all been focused really on single diseases. What we're thinking of now is how do we reduce our risk of disability of frailty and the disease we fear most, dementia. So there's a new agenda. Get even fitter, and every year do even more. So it was my birthday on Monday. I went from 76 to 77. So I increased the number of press-ups I do from 76 to 77. And I increased the number of minutes brisk walking I do, which I've set at 30, because that's the guidelines. Well, I've made it 31 now. And every diagnosis you get, you do even more. Secondly, do even more for other people. And there's probably 600 really great volunteers in Hertfordshire, some of whom are in the room. And doing things for other people is of vital importance for our own well-being. And then thirdly, increase your brain ability and reduce your risk of dementia. This is the new agenda to avoid dementia, frailty, and dependence on others. So let's just go through this in a little bit more detail. Get even fitter, emotional, cognitive, and physical. And there's 4 aspects of physical fitness, beginning with the letter S: strength, stamina, suppleness, and skill. And then this very interesting one about being positive. And this is the first editorial in one of the top 2 journals in the United States of America, called the Journal of the American Medical Association. And you can see it's the first editorial in 2020, the first editorial of the decade. And you can see here, the author is a man called Philip Pizzo, who's a very distinguished laboratory scientist. So I wondered, what is this article about? Is this the elixir of life that's been discovered by this chap in his laboratory? But if we look at the subtitle, look at that, isn't that interesting? Renewing purpose, building and sustaining social engagement, and embracing a positive lifestyle. Isn't that terrific? So just think a little bit more about brain ability. And this is our new book. And we made it very positive, increasing your brain ability, whatever your age, and reducing your risk of dementia. There's 3 things you can do. 1, keep their brain healthy, sleep well, manage stress, and be physically active. Secondly, keep the blood flowing well to the brain, just as you do to the heart, exactly the same as the risk factors for heart disease. And this interesting one of increasing engagement, positivity, and purpose, a particular challenge for people with either hearing or vision problems, or people who are housebound. So we need purpose in life. We need to build purpose. So here's the recipe for living longer better, for reducing the amount of time we're very dependent on other people. We have to understand what's happening to us in aging. We have to regain fitness. We have to think positive. And we have to prevent and tackle not just heart disease or cancer, but dementia, multimorbidity, frailty, and disability. And it's all possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, thinking as your mum or dad or as a member of a society in the place you live, let's just, I'd like to spend a minute now to think of a question your mum or dad might ask, or a comment. And the comment could be, this is a lot of rubbish, or how do I sign up for this, or whatever. Just a minute now. Stand up. I think it would be a good thing to do, and just put something in the chat room, and Will will help me keep an eye on that. And then I'm going to move into more detail, because I know this is largely a professional audience. Okay, just a minute to come up with a question from the floor. Thank you. Will, can you see the chat room?
I can.
I can't see it when I've got the screen up here. Any questions coming in?
Could you mute yourself, Neil? Don't worry, I think we can deal with the echo. So it's not so much a question, but James Burnley has said that her stepdad might say that he's frightened of falling to move more.
Yes.
Michelle Airy has said, why does my mum care home not keep my mum active in movement or exercise?
Yep.
Claudette has said, I'm too old to start now and I'm afraid of injuries. That's a thought someone might have. My mother will fear of falling or losing strength. Kathy. And James Cummings has asked, what's the easiest way to do this?
Okay, very good. Okay, let's. I'm now speaking to you as a highly typical audience who've chosen to come to this this workshop organised by. You've got an excellent organisation that has organised this workshop, and the university is very good, and a whole lot of good things happening. So you're highly typical. Yeah, these are the sort of reactions that come up. It's all to do with risk and the risks of inactivity. So there is a risk of falling if you take up some form of activity, but the risks of falling are very, very much greater if you don't. So if you, I recommended you join the Watford Scottish Country Dance Club. I don't know if there is one, if not there should be. And there might well be a risk of falling. But the risk is very much greater if you do not do this. So what we need to do is to understand that the normal biological process of aging does carry risk, but therefore that we need to compensate, and biologically we can close the fitness gap. And that would mean the fitness gap about skill and coordination. I'll come on to discuss a little bit more detail. There's also the issue of age. And the Lancet was very clear, one of the top medical journals in this country, and they were very clear that it's never too early and never too late to reduce your risk of dementia. So there's no upper age limit. And Her Majesty, who is, of course, she was fortunate, she was born to parents with plenty of money. Even more important, she was born to parents who gave her a challenge and created a job for her that she is continually challenged by. And the photograph of Her Majesty on a horse is just terrific. So she's had luck, but she's also kept active physically, and she's been fortunate in that she's in a job in which she is challenged. And this word of challenges is very important. So it's never too late. The challenge of care homes is a particular challenge. And we'll maybe have time for more discussion when we go on to this. So about changing the culture. So let me move on now to speak to you as a professional group. And some of you I know are volunteers, but let's just come on. So here's the challenge we face. The number of people over 80 will about double, and the numbers of people 20 to 60 won't change. So it's called absolute and relative population aging. And this has been, the challenge has been greatly aggravated, partly by COVID, but even more by lockdown. And this is what we've done to develop Living Longer Better. And this started before COVID, long before COVID, but COVID has made it more urgent. So there are two challenges. The first is to increase health span. Now you see here, it's not so much living longer that people want, it's living longer better and having a shorter period at the end of life when you're heavily dependent on others. That's what people want. And we call that in public health, healthy life expectancy or health span. It's very important to remember the impact of deprivation. And for people in the most deprived subgroups of Hertfordshire or any country in the world, disabling conditions come on about 10 years earlier. And the expectation of life is shorter, but the period of dependency may be even longer. And this is what determines the need for social care. The good news is that we can, in all social groups, we can increase health span and compress that period of multimorbidity and high dependency at the end of life. The second aim is not the long-term aim, but the short-term aim. It's to delay the onset of disability and dementia and to enable people to recover lost ability. Now, this is a variant of the fitness graph diagram I showed you, and this is from the report of the 4 chief medical officers. And you can see here very clearly what they call the capability threshold, which is a fancy name for ability to get to the toilet in time. So you can see here the decline in strength and balance if not part of regular activity throughout lifespan. So you can see here on the right, this person is still well above the line, the capability threshold, not because of some chemical potion, but because they've kept active. Now this also, for anyone who's in the NHS, has great benefits for the NHS, that people who are frail, when the slightest thing happens, the chest infection, they've no reserve left. So here's the last 3 years of someone's life at the top. They've lost a lot of fitness. They're thinking negatively, they're depressed, pessimistic. And what happens there is frequent hospital admissions. And if you look at the bottom row, the person who is fit and able, they may have the same number of long-term conditions, but they've got much more reserve. So when a chest infection comes along, they are still able to get to the toilet in time or to get upstairs or to cook for themselves. So they have fewer hospital admissions. And most of us want to stay out of hospital. Most doctors want to stay out of hospital. Now we need hospitals, they're vitally important, and we're very fortunate to have good hospitals. But the key thing, particularly in the last 3 years of life and year of life, is to stay out unless it's absolutely essential to go in. So we can prevent the need for health and social care. We can also, we can help people get younger. To recover lost ability. And this is something we wrote in a paper we published in the BMJ. And you can see the above average 70-year-old is about the same as the average person who's 10 years younger. So we can help people drop a decade. People can recapture the equivalent of 10 years loss of fitness. And we wrote this in the BMJ, and you can see it says focus on physical activity can help avoid unnecessary social care. Now, what's becoming clear is that if we help people live longer better, we increase their healthy life expectancy and compress the number of years when they're dependent at the end of life. And the estimate is that for every single year of, well, that's a 1, not an exclamation mark, for 1 year of additional healthy life expectancy, that's equivalent to £54,450,000 a year in savings. That's money that could go to hip replacement, it could go to primary schools, it could go to housing, it could go to somewhere else. But at the moment, it's being spent on preventable dependency. And the aim would be to try to get 5 years of additional healthy life expectancy. And that would mean that in Hertfordshire, that would be 272 million pounds a year in Hertfordshire. That's what we could get. And remember, money is not everything. The problem in Hertfordshire will be recruiting people to work in health and social care. So here's what we're doing, what you are doing could have huge financial benefits. And this just published today. And this is a study of people with multimorbidity. So again, there's no upper age limit. And the more health problems you've got, the bigger the benefit for you. And you can see here 6.3 years for men and 7.6 years for women. And this is just doing very simple things. Stopping smoking, obviously, but much more important is this idea of physical, cognitive, and emotional activity. So let me just go through some of these issues in a little bit more detail, then we can stop for questions. So strength. So I'm issuing to men the Great British Press-Up Challenge. And I sometimes do my press-ups in 2 batches, but I think all British men should be able to do the same number of press-ups as their age. And then there's sugar. Sugar is very good for strength, provided you leave it in the bag. So I think we should be giving everyone who's 70, 80 plus weights. But if they don't have weights, they can take a couple of kilograms of sugar, and every time the advertisements come on television, they should stand up 10 times holding a kilogram of sugar on each side. So sugar is very good for you, providing it stays in the bag. Then there's stamina. And the single best way of promoting stamina is through brisk walking, or of course dancing, or tennis, or the many other ways of doing it. But the simplest way is brisk walking. That's walking just briskly enough you feel your breath coming a little bit more quickly. So although I've done 2 big Zoom meetings today, I've still managed to walk 22 minutes of my 31. And I'm in discussion with Will and John about a Hertfordshire edition of my little book, Dr. Gray's Walking Cure. So stamina is the ability to keep going without getting unduly breathless. Cardiovascular fitness. So strength, stamina, suppleness. Now suppleness, everyone should do a daily dozen, 12 minutes every morning with some suppleness in, or 40 minutes in your 80s and 50 minutes in your 90s. You'll notice I jumped from 12 to 14. But things like Tai Chi, dance, yoga, and I'm finding there's no upper age limit. People who've never heard of Tai Chi, never heard of Pilates, and there'll be lots of good teachers in Hertfordshire. So we need to start thinking, how do we get more people involved in improving suppleness? And then finally, skill. And this is a very interesting instrument here on the right for improving your skill. It's called an electric toothbrush. So every day I try to do my teeth, or brush my gums, it's more important than my teeth. And the electric toothbrush lasts 2 minutes. So I do it standing on one leg. I keep a hand pretty near the bathroom basin. And if I think I'm doing well, I might close my eyes. But there's a simple way in which you can improve skill. But so too can walking football, dance, Pilates. So strength, stamina, suppleness, and skill. The scientific evidence for these is very strong. And then we now need to think of how we prescribe activity. So we're setting up a national activity therapy service. And I'd be very interested, as part of Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire, of having an activity therapy service for Hertfordshire. You see, the NHS is very important for rehabilitation, but for every one person who manages to get to rehabilitation in Hertfordshire, there'll be 5 or 6 who don't get referred. So they need activity therapy. And a lot of that is delivered by people we call personal trainers, or by teachers of Tai Chi, Pilates. And here's what we're doing, is starting to prescribe activity. So here's the sort of prescription you might get next year. So imagine you had some heart disease diagnosed, you get a prescription. Remember these old green prescriptions? So it would give you a link to the British Heart Foundation, a training program from a very good company set up by 2 young physios called Extra Life. Might even give you some free support from a trainer. And then a health walk at Willowmead. So here's the sort of thing that you would be offered. There's an XA program for people with cardiovascular disease, a link to the British Heart Foundation, and here's Willowmead, part of the Hertfordshire and Middlesex Wildlife Trust. Now, walking the pavement is good, but walking in greenery is even better, and particularly if it's a bit rough underfoot. And then the gyms and fitness facilities, and the most important aspect of that are the trainers. And we've just launched a new training program for older adults to live longer, better. So the trainers are starting to think in a different way. And we're also very interested in recruiting people over the age of 55 to become trainers. And then a bit of high tech. And this is at the top there is a very interesting bit of equipment developed in Oxford called the WizDish. And it's a treadmill that doesn't move, so it's very safe. And it's got a bar around it you can hold on to. And here we see two friends walking along the Great Wall of China in virtual reality. And in my view, every care home should have one of these, and a bicycle and equipment. Every sheltered housing block should also have these. We're starting to think of ways where people who can't get out can be stimulated to exercise with others and with a social purpose, to raise money for the Hearts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust, for example, because that creates jobs for young people. And I'm also interested in competition. I'm not sure what would really motivate people in Stevenage, probably doing better than people in Watford. I don't know the local politics in Hertfordshire well enough, but you would certainly be able to motivate people to compete and do things with a social purpose. So that's a little bit more detail on the science, and I think let's just pause there, Will, and I don't know if you can see any more questions or comments coming in that you could give.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions, both from Richard, who's one of the senior librarians at Hertfordshire Libraries. Apologies for everyone if you're hearing the echo coming through this. I hope you'll be able to hear me still. Is the activity therapy service a similar concept to social prescribing?
Great to have librarians on board, Richard. I often say we've discovered the elixir of life, and it's called knowledge, and it's consumed by lifelong learning. And I'll come back to learning a little bit later. So it's great to have librarians involved. The libraries are important, but the librarians are even more important. Yes, social prescribing is part of this. So people will be prescribing drugs or psychological therapy, and there'll also be a prescription for activity in the broadest sense, which could include learning. So we're calling that at the moment social prescribing, because social prescribing could be sitting reading a novel, which is very beneficial, but we're looking at activity. And remember, 3 types of activity: physical, cognitive, and emotional. So reading groups, for example, I don't know if you run them, Richard, discussion groups are very even better than reading on your own. So yes, social prescribing is the current name tied into this. This is all the way the NHS is going. Other points people have brought up, Will?
Richard also asked, how can we encourage people who are still concerned about going out because of COVID-19?
Well, it's all to do with risk, really. And I say now I think we're in the position where the risks of inactivity, both psychological and physical, are greater than the risks of COVID. There's no such thing as safe. I was on the Vine show the other day, and he was saying, well, is immunisation safe? I said, I've never used the word safe in 50 years of public health. There is no such thing as safe. It's all to do with the balance of risk. And I think libraries are very important. And I think identifying the people, Richard, who've not come into your library in the last year, I know they've been shut, but start to reach out to them and help them get online. Our original plan was to get Boy Scouts and guides and cadets to help the over 80s get online. And I think we should go back to that. So we should maybe, you will have contact with a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And we should be looking for the ones who are no longer coming to the physical library and reaching them, challenging them and stimulating them. Anything else, Will, there?
Yeah, they're coming in now. So Kate has asked, what would you say older people should exercise every day or every other day, and for how long?
Yep, very simple. 12 minutes a day for strength, skill and suppleness, and 30 minutes brisk walking, 7 days a week. 14 minutes if you're 80s, and 50 minutes if you're 90s. But we'll be doing that. Let me move on, and we'll come back at the end, because I'm going to speak a little bit more about the policy side. Now, the Social Care Act of 2014 clearly sets out that local authorities are responsible for preventing the need for social care. And I'm working very much on this at the moment, reducing the need. And we do this through a system. And a system is a set of activities with a common set of objectives. So you can see one of these objectives is focused on physical ability, but actually the work that Will and the team are doing covers many of these. And these are the sort of things we need to get discussed in the WI or the barber shop or the bridge club, the bowls club. We need to get people talking, particularly talking about dying well as living well. And systems are delivered by a network. And what's been set up has been a terrific network in Hertfordshire with all the key people. And I hope we'll show the website of the network later on. Now, the job of the network is to change culture. And we are very keen to work to change the way people think, to rewire their brains. That's everybody. And how are we going to do that? Well, firstly, we need to agree on the language. So the way I've used the language of aging, fitness, disease, and ageism, for example. But if you ask a lot of doctors what their definition of aging was, you get a whole variety of answers. Or what's the relationship of dementia to Alzheimer's disease? So we need to be clear about the language we use. Then we have a learning program, and we are aiming to reach all older people through GP information systems. Now, obviously, as you can see here, we've got to get everyone online, but I'm sure Age UK is doing good work on that already. And then we've agreed with Will and the Hertfordshire, Active Hertfordshire, to have, I think we've got 100 licenses. So I would like all the people who are on this talk to feel they could walk in to the Bridge Club or the Bowls Club and give the talk I gave in the first part of this presentation. We've got it all prepared for you with a standard pitch. This is a cultural revolution. We have to change the way people think. And we believe there's about 1,190, that's 1,000 per million population. Quite a lot of them are volunteers, Age UK volunteers. So we're going to start with training 10 people how to give the pitch, and then we'll make the training material available to much larger numbers. Every warden of sheltered housing, for example, at least half the WIs, the University of the Third Age. And then we're working with the leadership of the various organisations involved. So we need to move from worrying about care, doing things for people, to enabling people to do things themselves. This is the new language. And this is the learning program. These are the sort of topics. And my aim is for this to be offered people at the time of what's called retirement. I'm trying to ban the word retirement and call it renaissance. Because at retirement age now, people should expect they're going to live to 90, and they should prepare for that. They need to start thinking about, well, what the hell am I going to do? What will life be like at 90? What do I want to avoid? We can't guarantee anything, but we can certainly reduce your risk of being disabled and dependent at 90, and increase your risk of being able to have an enjoyable life and contribute to the well-being of other people. So this is the training program that we've got developed. And here's an example. See the key messages here. So I'm thinking if you looked out your window and you saw people walking down the road, these are the simple messages for people. And I can tell you the medical profession is often as confused as members of the public. But we're going to reach everybody to have new learning outcomes and key messages that we're giving people. And the organisations like the WI, like Age UK, churches, mosques, but I think I'm very keen to get involved with clubs, golf clubs, bridge clubs, bowls clubs. These are other organisations where we need to give this, but we need 1,000 of you able to give the sort of talk I was giving with confidence to spread the message. This is the revolution. So this is the revolution. And you see I've written a book called Sod 70. And we're moving on from the idea that caring about people is different from caring for them. And the word care usually means doing things for people. And what we're doing is saying, well, let's assume we should enable them to do things for themselves, to recapture the skill. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to us, is the message here. So there, Will, if I stop sharing. That's a summary of what we're trying to do in Live Longer Better. And Will, I'd be very pleased to take more comments. I can now see the chat room.
Yeah.
To take comments.
While I have a quick look through the questions, could you make me the host again?
Yes. That's it, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you. And that also.
Okay, there's Richard saying that they can get people online. Richard, is that the librarian, Richard?
That is.
Yep, good.
That is.
That's.
There.
Sorry, Muir, I've just muted you just to avoid the echo. That's a really important point for everyone, and I think that's a good example of the network. So Richard there, who's a senior librarian at Hertfordshire Libraries, they've done lots of work in terms of improving people's digital literacy and connectivity, and that's something that everyone, if that's an issue, and I know it's a common issue across the county, especially for our older population, in terms of accessing online materials or improving skills, then the library service is a fantastic resource to be able to lean on in terms of improving those abilities. So I'll talk with Richard after this and see the best way of circulating information about that, but with the details about this event and the slides, then we can send those out and we'll maybe get a bit on the website as well.
Yeah, if I come in with the echo. Yeah, Richard, I see the library service as having a very important role to play here. I don't know how many librarians you've got and how many branches you've got, but knowledge is the enemy of aging. It's the elixir of life. And I see Roberta about her 83-year-old dad. Yeah, there is a problem group in society called MEN, and they need special focus. So when I look at groups like Generation Games or Move It or Lose It, 90% of it are women. So I think, Roberta, we're very familiar with the problems of MEN as a particular group we need to pay attention to. Maybe their grandchildren are the ones that make them do things.
Brilliant. Right, I'm just mute you again for a sec, Muir. Right, so we've had a couple of extra questions, slightly longer ones. So Michelle has asked, how do we manage the conflict that the social care sector, so care homes and supported living and domiciliary care, doesn't see supporting enablement or exercise as their responsibility in the caring role, or believe that they don't have time? Also, the issue here is that potentially they could not be funded with enough staff to support this.
Yeah, this is a very difficult area, and I've worked in care homes for 50 years. Firstly, domiciliary, as we call it. You know, the people providing care there, they're usually on a very tight time scale. So, you know, if something takes 3 minutes longer in the early phase of recovering some ability, oh gosh, am I going to make my next client on time? So there's a problem there. And for the older person, they may fear that if they become, quotes, independent, quotes, because none of us are independent, that the carer will stop coming to see them. Then there's the particular challenge of, quotes, care homes, quotes. And there's the issues of, well, I'm paying to be here and you're paid to do things for me. The relatives may feel they're paying and therefore they expect things to be done. And then there's a question of time. But this is what we mean by cultural revolution. And we need to think of ways in which we can do this. And I think, Will, you've got people that are outsiders going into care homes, trainers, teachers of Pilates, Tai Chi. So I think it's very hard to do it in the home itself, and it needs to come from outside. And the doctors and physios need to prescribe this and say, well, we're going to have music and movement, and everyone's got to do it. So it's a culture change, but particularly difficult for anything with the word care in front of it. And we'll discuss this with the social services department too.
Brilliant, thank you, Neil. Oh, there we go. So James Hurnley, this one might be more for us. So, hi, I think the programme is excellent, but I've recently moved to Dorset. Do you know how I can connect the programme to this area? I teach cardiac rehab and falls prevention programmes. I'd also be interested in training as a live longer better trainer, almost 55 this August. Thank you. So, Jane, so what this is, we are Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire is part of a national movement, and that's what Muir has launched across England. We, as one of many active partnerships across the county, there's 43 of us in total, and a number of those active partnerships have got behind this national movement. I can't speak specifically for Active Dorset, but it's definitely something we can look into. And if not, it might be something that they want to join the movement on a national basis, and then they can launch their own local activation, which is what we've done for Hertfordshire and what lots of other active partnerships are doing around the country. It's really important because it's the same theory. Obviously, it's the same. Lots of people are following the same issues, but lots of people have very varied local priorities and issues. So that local activation is really key, so that we can tailor our responses to exactly what it is that the local demographic and the local communities need. So I've made a note of your email address. I'll have a look into who your local activating partner of this is and see what we can do.
I think I've gone off mute. Yeah, contact Gareth Dix, D-I-X, and he's the head of Devon. Dorset's not involved yet, but Devon is very much involved, and that's just over the border. And maybe we'll get Dorset involved, you and I.
Brilliant. Just do that again. So sorry, Muir, I've just muted you quickly. Sorry, I've seen you talking. And there's one quick question from Kathy. I think it's relating to one of your previous slides. What was the piece of equipment called? She put in brackets the treadmill. I think it was the virtual reality piece of equipment that you'd suggested.
It's look up ROVR, no E in it, Wizdish, W-I-Z-D-I-S-H, Wizdish. And it's very clever virtual reality, because supposing you were in a home somewhere and you put the specs on and you're walking down the main road in Florence, your niece in Toronto could also be walking with you, chatting to you. The niece doesn't even need to have virtual reality, so it's very clever, because everything's to do with not just physical activity in isolation, but in groups. So the Wizdish, and I believe virtual reality, obviously we should get people out for face-to-face, but people need, if they're housebound, I think people need 2 or 3 interactions at least a day with meaning. A book club run by the library, a walking group, and that walking group could be walking around the capitals of Europe. That's what's happening. There's plenty of 14 and 50-year-olds. If I could see your faces, I'd know which of you had teenage sons, because you would all go white when I mentioned the word Fortnite. But Fortnite has created terrific software that we're now adapting for housebound people.
Brilliant. Thank you, Muir. I'd also direct people to the chat if I can, only because there's a couple of really good examples. People have commented about local projects. So John has mentioned about a digital inclusivity, sort of a tackling digital poverty project that's happening in North Herts and Stevenage. So if that applies to any of the partners in the room, there's a link there that you could have a look at, and that might be something else that you can take advantage of, as well as what we were talking about with the libraries. There's loads and loads of really positive comments in here about some others. Reach Out Hertfordshire, support from volunteers to provide companionship and practical support for older people. So again, really good support services that are on offer. And one thing that's become evident since starting this project is there's so much good work. Well, good is understatement. There's incredible work going on around the county. We are really lucky. What we need to try and do as best we can is walk this path together. And that's what Live Longer Better in Hertfordshire is all about. We're not necessarily, there may be a few new offers in terms of if we see there's a gap, like the training offer and that sort of thing, if we think we can help improve people's existing offers. But what we really want to be able to do is help everyone work together with events like this and linking people up and making sure that resources best used around the county to benefit the older adults.
And stay connected, John Brown. Looks good, John. A new project in North Arts. Staying connected, tackling digital poverty. So good work there.
Brilliant. And Claudette has mentioned the It's Never Too Late campaign as well, which will be reinstated very soon. So something we can all get behind. Just to finish off, we've got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to share my screen again. So I just wanted to flag another opportunity to everyone in the room. So as I've just mentioned, we are part of a national team. There's a large number of active partnerships that have got behind the national campaign, and we're bringing this down to local activation. But as part of that national campaign, there are also national events as well. And this is one that's upcoming. So Live Longer Better, The Great Escape. I won't read through it all, but you can see the details on the screen there. It looks like there. So Muir's on the bill to sort of start it all up, but then also some really good insights from the AGK national teams. The EFL Trust are in there. The UMF program as well. So it's going to be some really good bits and pieces around national insight. So when I circulate the details and the recording for this event, I've really popped this slide in there with that link in case anyone wants to join the national event, which is happening on the 7th of July. So just double check there's not anything else. Juanita's also put some a note about SLL and Spiral, about exercise referral schemes that are running the leisure centres across Hertfordshire. So again, that's another fantastic offer that people can look up and get some more details for. And if anyone has details that they want circulated to the network for Live Longer Better, please do send them through to me. I'm always more than happy. We've got this mailing list now, and it's exactly what it's set up to do, to try and inform everyone of all the really good stuff that's already going on and best join up as all of our practice. So my email address, if I close this, is at the bottom of this slide. So please do get in touch at any point. Like I say, I'm happy to circulate anything or answer any questions that you have about the movement. There is more information on the Live Longer Better Enhanced website, which is listed there. Again, that will be in the details that we circulate, and the recording for this event will be hosted on the events page for that. It's also got the launch event, which had a large number of local and national partners that presented on it. So if you missed that, then you can catch up with the recording of it on there. And as a very last point, as you leave the webinar today, there'll be a pop-up survey that should kind of appear on your screen. It's only 3 questions, really short, but really appreciate some input. It's around the future masterclass webinars, the sorts of things you'd like to see covered, sorts of organisations or practitioners or community groups stuff. So really appreciate some input into that, because we want to make sure everything that's presented through the movement is kind of on topic and what people want to hear about. So apart from that, I just want to obviously say a huge thank you to Muir for joining us today. Really valuable insight, and we're really lucky to have Muir join us on a local basis. And equally, a huge thank you to everyone. We've had really great numbers. I think we were up to 80 or 90 at one point. So really good attendance today, which only goes to show the strength of the movement. We're all getting together, and together we can do something really powerful. So big thank you for coming. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.